Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour is Trump sending the feds to Seattle next, and I read Kamala Harris's book, so you don't have to. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I was looking forward to a nice, quiet, relaxing weekend, and I'm sure that's what the people in Portland were saying too. Unfortunately, people who live near the ICE facility in downtown Portland haven't had a nice, quiet, relaxing evening in over 90 days. Because every single night since June, the lunatics in Antifa and Portland go to the ICE facility and riot, sometimes attack officers, sometimes vandalize the property, all the time banging on stuff, and have frequently had to be dispersed by crowd control measures. There is low-income housing right next to that facility, and now they've had to deal with this stuff every single night. Portland officials and Oregon officials have refused to deal with it for over 3 months, the entire summer. Now, this is par for the course for Oregon. They didn't deal with what was going on in Portland during the Summer of Love in 2020 for 120 consecutive nights. And by the way, these are all new officials. Most of those people, in fact, all of the people that we're going to mention today were not even in office in 2020. This is just their MO. There's a bunch of videos going around of what's happening down in Portland. Our friend Katie Daviscourt had been covering this since the beginning. Jonathan Cho is down there. Brandy's down there. But still, no mainstream media. I don't see anybody from the mainstream media covering this at all. In fact, that has allowed Portland officials to say, nothing's happening. Nothing to see here whatsoever.
All right, move on. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Nothing to see here, please.
That is exactly what's happening in Portland. They're claiming they're old videos. They most certainly are not. They definitely are not. Those are being updated nightly by Katie and one or two other independent journalists who are down there. The Portland officials and the Oregon officials are trying to make it seem like Portland is this utopia. Patty Murray did a tweet about how beautiful Portland is and how calm it is. And I said, tell me you've never been to Portland without telling me you've never been to Portland. Portland is not a pretty city, and it's got water running right down the middle of it. It's a town that's sprouted up because of logging. Is there some charming stuff? Like some roads that are made of cobblestone and some interesting architecture? Sure. But anytime I come over that bridge from going over the Columbia River into Portland, I go, man, usually you look at a view and you go, oh, isn't that a beautiful city? What an ugly city Portland is. Nobody would ever call it beautiful. But now you've let the streets be taken over by Antifa and homeless people and drug addicts. So claiming none of this is happening, don't believe your lying eyes, Portland is just great and dandy, just ain't true. Tina Kotek, governor of Oregon, in response to Trump announcing that he's sending in the National Guard to deal with what's going on there, released a video where she is literally skipping down the streets of Portland, holding hands with who I assume is her wife, talking about how, oh, no, everything's fine here. It's wonderful. It's great. It's fantastic.
Hello, Oregon. Governor Kotek here. Contrary to President Trump's latest social media post, Portland is not war-ravaged. There's no insurrection. There's no threat to national security, and there's no need for military troops. Military service members should be dedicated to real emergencies. And that's exactly what I said to the president when I asked him to stand down from sending federal troops into our city. But just in case that phone call wasn't enough, I thought I would take to the streets myself right here in downtown Portland. I'm standing just blocks away from the waterfront, overlooking the beautiful Willamette River. Portland City Hall, the federal courthouse, and dozens of shops and restaurants here in the central city. We do have challenges here in Portland, in Oregon, and across the country. The cost of living is too high. We need to build more housing that people can afford. And we need to always work on having the best schools possible. So let's keep the focus on the real problems, not the made-up ones.
Oh, the gaslighting. The gaslighting. After 3 months of rioting outside that building, nothing to see here. Nothing at all. Pay no attention to the fireworks factory exploding behind me like in The Naked Gun. Nothing to see here. Portland Mayor Keith Wilson, a coalition of Democratic mayors from across Oregon, is circulating a draft letter, according to the Post Millennial, that explicitly denounces any federal militarization of the Portland metro area. Post Millennial has obtained a copy of the unsigned draft dated September 26, which outlines a coordinated resistance strategy among mayors in the Portland metro area. The letter warns that local governments will withhold resources from any federal operation the mayors perceive as infringing on civil liberties. It also commits Portland to providing direct legal support for protesters, including members of the designated terrorist organization Antifa, and deploying human rights observers to scrutinize federal actions. It is amazing how President Trump has managed to put the Democrats on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue yet again. What's crazy to me is watching these lunatics assault federal officers and still have people like Tina Kotek and all the other officials down there saying there's nothing going on. According to the Post Millennial, multiple arrests were made outside of Portland, Oregon Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility on Sunday evening. The arrests come as Trump administration has ordered the National Guard to protect the ICE facilities in Portland. The left-wing group has seized the area surrounding the facility for months on end. Last week, President Donald Trump declared Antifa a domestic terrorist organization, and over the weekend he ordered, I am directing the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other domestic terrorists. Now, by the way, he has complete authority to go in and protect federal facilities. And if the Democrats had actually done their jobs, this wouldn't have happened. Why are you so opposed to actually enforcing the law? Oh, right, you're on the side of the criminals. You have let them overrun your streets. You have let drug dealers overrun your streets. And as a result, you get this. There are tons of people thrilled, absolutely thrilled, that the feds are coming in, because it has gotten so out of control in Portland, night after night after night after night. Now, there are some people, because Portland is weird, who see this as an opportunity to cosplay, running around in whatever weird costumes. There was a lady, buck naked, in a wheelchair, banging on a drum. I bet you the people in the ICE facility are going, what the hell is wrong with this country? Deport me. Get me away from here. I want a night's sleep. It's too much. Get me out of here. I don't really know what that has to do with protesting immigration reforms or immigration enforcement, but sure, naked lady in your wheelchair. Yes, I'm sure your message was received. But every single night, this insanity starts again. Now, the feds have every right to go in and protect a federal facility. Do they have the right to go in and get all the homeless people off the streets? That's a question. And I don't think that's what they're actually going to be doing. They're actually going to be going in and protecting the ICE facility in California, which is the most recent example of this. And that case is still working its way through the courts. It's going to end up in front of the Supreme Court. What we saw there was ICE went in, feds went in, protected the federal facilities, and Gavin Newsom, because he didn't want to look bad, what did he do? He sent in the California Highway Patrol to actually break down the rioters after that, because he didn't want to look bad because he wants to run for president. What did we see last night? Portland police were finally allowed to do their jobs because Tina Kotek and crew are so worried about Trump coming to town and making them look stupid, except they still have their allies in the media. They're allies in the media who refuse to cover what is actually happening in Portland. And what you see happening in Portland is the same thing we saw during the Autonomous Zone, the same thing we saw during the Summer of Love in Portland. What's that? During the day, it's the weirdos in Portland, the naked people in the wheelchairs. At night, Antifa comes out. So, if the media isn't showing up for the nighttime, they're not seeing the real fun. I love how you had some people saying, there's nothing happening here. And behind them is literally vandalism on the building they claim nothing is happening. Well, then, if nothing's happening, where'd the vandalism come from? According to the Post-Millennial, Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield announced Sunday that the state, along with the city of Portland, has filed a federal lawsuit against President Donald Trump and several administration officials, challenging the legality of Trump's decision to federalize 200 National Guard members for deployment in Oregon. The lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court for the District of Oregon contends that Trump's invocation of Title X to authorize Guard members for federal duties over the next 60 days is unconstitutional. Oregon argues that the move violates the Posse Comitatus Act of the 10th Amendment, which limits the federal government's power to deploy military forces domestically without specific circumstances such as invasion or insurrection. What do you think rebelling against federal authorities is, by the way, guys? Governor Tina Kotek, Attorney General Rayfield, and Portland Mayor Keith Wilson condemned the order. During a press conference, Kotek said Trump's move was an abuse of power and a disservice to our communities and our service members. I have a question. Why aren't you taking care of this? Why aren't you taking care of this? Because at the end of the day, you like having the criminals in your city. The more scared people are, the more they will vote more taxes for you to not fund police and spend on whatever other stupid thing you want to spend it on. Whatever other activist insanity. You guys managed to blow what? Close to $1 billion on the homeless issue, and it only got worse? Hey, you guys can compete with Seattle for stupidity. And then, what's crazy to me is the mayor of Portland claiming the videos are from years ago. Now, what's funny about this is claiming the videos are from years ago. Yeah, years ago, you guys didn't do anything about it either. They're not. According to Fox News, Portland Mayor Keith Wilson on Saturday dismissed President Trump's plan to send the federal troops to Oregon's largest city, claiming there is no lawlessness or violence there. The president said he directed War Secretary Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect them. We did that already. Hours later, Wilson said during a news conference the number of necessary troops is 0 and any other American city. He says, this is an American city. We do not need any intervention. This is not a military target. He alleged the president would not find lawlessness or violence. Well, it looks like your activists last night dissuaded any of that. He claimed the video footage showing violence in the city was from 5 years ago, recycled and then recycled again. The gaslighting that is going on. The absolute gaslighting where they're telling us, don't believe your lying eyes of what you're seeing. Unbelievable. This is what they do. They didn't want to deal with it back then. They're not dealing with it now. Oh, and by the way, the nonviolence you're seeing, do you know the police confiscated 2 guns and possible IEDs during a Chicago ICE riot this weekend? We have seen the violence firsthand. Yes, those burning Waymo cars in Los Angeles. Nothing to see here. No, Waymo didn't just order all their vehicles out of town to stop the rioters from burning them. The blocked freeways. No, nothing to see here. This takes me back to 2020. When you had members of left-wing media accusing me of lying about the stuff I was seeing in the autonomous zone. This is the playbook. Nothing to see here, nothing at all. We know what's going on. We've seen the video. We have friends who are down there right now. There's vandalism on the building. There's officers who've been assaulted. There's cars that have been vandalized. They brought a guillotine. I thought the people on the left are mad when guillotines show up at protests. They brought a guillotine to the ICE facility. They're targeting the ICE agents. They have a staging area down there for supplies. You want to tell me it's not happening? And then I'll put a question out to you guys. Do you think the National Guard needs to come to Seattle? Do you think that Seattle is where they should go next? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from our frenemy, Bennett the protester. Bennett, what's going on, man?
Hey, friend of me. So real quick, it was actually true that Trump was in part relying on a Fox broadcast that did reuse footage from 2020 and label it from having come out this year.
Nope. He declared Antifa a terrorist organization before any of that. Whatever Fox plays is not what Trump was doing long before any of this. You had Tom Homan saying they were coming to Portland a month ago. This is nothing new. So just claiming, oh, it's one video that did it because Fox decided to rerun some old footage in context of this has been going on in Portland for years. I'm sorry, dude, that doesn't hold up at all.
Okay, then I think when Tegan Kotek that's what she was referring to, because you made it sound like they're just making it up out of thin air that they were using old videos. Fox News did broadcast footage from 2020 mixed in with videos from the recent protest in Portland, which was likely to have confused viewers into thinking that was footage from this year.
Let me ask you a question. Is there really any difference? I'm not saying they should have done it. I'm not saying they should have done it. One's a courthouse, one's an ICE facility. I'm seeing the same kind of Antifa lunatics and weirdos in Portland outside. I'm not justifying what they did. But this reminds me, do you remember this? During the autonomous zone, Fox did a thing that multiple media outlets do. They took one image and superimposed it of another. It was an Antifa guy standing guard in the autonomous zone, and they put him over a picture of something else. I do it all the time in our pictures. And they said, look, he wasn't actually at that intersection, so it's not actually happening. Now, do I think this is a little different when you say, oh, I'm going to take some footage from 5 years ago and mix it in to show you what's happening now? That's a problem. But at the same time, they weren't dealing with it then either.
Okay, I mean, you can argue the Portland politics were not dissimilar, but I'm saying that the idea that Tina Kotek just made this up out of thin air, that the news and that Trump were relying on
Wait a second. I want you to listen to this.
True. This definitely happened.
Bennett, listen to this for a second.
Hello, Oregon. Governor Kotek here. Contrary to President Trump's latest social media post, Portland is not war-ravaged. There's no insurrection. There's no threat to national security, and there's no need for military troops. Military service members should be dedicated to real emergencies. And that's exactly what I said to the president when I asked him to stand down from sending federal troops into our city. But just in case that phone call wasn't enough, I thought I would take to the streets myself right here in downtown Portland. I'm standing just blocks away from the waterfront, overlooking the beautiful Willamette River. Portland City Hall, the federal courthouse, and dozens of shops and restaurants here in the central city. We do have challenges here in Portland, in Oregon, and across the country. The cost of living is too high. We need to build more housing that people can afford. And we need to always work on having the best schools possible. So let's keep the focus on the real problems, not the made-up ones.
So is it completely made up there, Bennett? Is her narrative true at all?
I mean, if it's anything like the playbook for Chaz Chop in Seattle in 2020, I mean, there was a very tightly prescribed area that for protests, which has been sort of the unofficial designated conflict between the protesters and the police. But you go like 100 feet out of that, and you could just wander around in the city, look like it. Oh, everything was closed.
Yeah,
but
Bennett, let's be real about that.
The city was not under threat.
That's like saying if you go across the wall from Gaza, it's perfectly peaceful. Okay, so you have the protests happening in this one area. It doesn't mean the protests aren't happening. That seems to be the argument here. That's the argument the Democrats are making. Oh, it's perfectly peaceful here. That's a flat out lie. You know it and I know it.
I mean, I think that in a protest that is determined it's going to remain in one area to make a point, that does not make the rest of the city unpleasant to be in. And let's talk about Portland not being beautiful. I mean, forget everything else. I've been there. I've driven around, before these protests were going on. It's a beautiful city to drive around in.
It is not a beautiful city. When is the last time you were in Portland, Bennett?
Well, I admit that I like murals and street art. And for the most part, these are legally sanctioned murals covering most of the buildings in Portland.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the homeless everywhere. When I was driving at the highways going into Portland, it was nastier than Seattle.
And I think that's what Tina Kotek said. We have problems related to cost of housing and homelessness. But, I mean, the idea that it's not just a beautiful
Bennett,
place to
let me
look
ask you a
around,
question.
Do you think you're going to win? Recently.
Do you think you're going to win hearts and minds trying to have this minutia of an argument? Because what you're saying is they're only happening in this area, not the whole city. I will agree with you on that. But does that mean they're not happening?
I mean, I think it depends on how people feel about the merits of protesting ICE. I mean, it's not like this exists in isolation. You can explain why people are.
But that's
so
not. You want to protest ICE? Protest ICE all you want. And Bennett, I know you. You don't attack people. You stand there with your signs, right? But what we're talking about is the people who are attacking ICE agents, who are vandalizing buildings, who are stopping cars from leaving facilities, who are attacking cars. That's not what you do. You want to protest, go out and protest. If it was just a naked lady banging the drum in the wheelchair, it wouldn't be an issue. But you and I both know that's not what it is, just like that's not what it was in 2020. Give you the last word, then I got to run.
Okay, I mean, I just want to explain, the context of why people are so furious at ICE, because I think people listening to the show are like, but aren't they going after dangerous criminals? How could anybody be mad about that? here is the problem. When you prioritize going after even criminals, even dangerous ones in one demographic, I mean, I want you to imagine how appalling it would sound.
Well, no. I'm stopping you right there. When you look at who's actually been arrested by these guys, it's not one demographic. It's just not. And that is a narrative spun by the left. I see just as many people from Eastern European countries and from Russia and from India and from tons of other countries as I do from anywhere that speaks Spanish, Bennett. Don't buy into any of that kind of stuff. Wish we had more time for this conversation. Thank you for being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss. Is Trump sending the feds to Seattle next? And do you want him to send the feds to Seattle next? We'll discuss. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I'm looking at the Warrior Injury Law text line, and it seems like most of you want the National Guard coming here to Seattle. Now, let me play devil's advocate for a minute because we are the most pro-devil show on the radio. Right now, I'd say Seattle is pretty much back to where it was when Bruce Harrell was on the Seattle City Council, when he was president of the Seattle City Council. That's not a good place to be. It's not great. There's homeless all over the place. We're not seeing the nightly riots at the ICE facility at the federal building downtown that we were seeing back in June, that we saw for a weekend here and a weekend there during the No Kings insanity. So, do you think the National Guard should come here? Now, I'll tell you, Jay Inslee had the National Guard out during the autonomous zone, not to deal with the autonomous zone, but to feed the homeless. That's right, they were giving out sandwiches to the homeless. That's what the National Guard was doing while armed terrorists took over 6 blocks of Seattle. Jay Inslee, no better than anybody down in Oregon with what's going on here. And I will caution you of the following. As much fun as it is to watch the National Guard arrest the lunatics who are rioting in Portland or Chicago or any other city, the thing here is realize what power does in the hands of your worst enemy. Realize that Joe Biden was trying to declare parents as domestic terrorists for protesting what their kids were being taught in school, for showing up to school boards and complaining. Realize what the Democrats could do with the National Guards if they choose to do something similar. Now, I agree with you. I think that the National Guard should definitely be able to go and protect the federal assets that are in different cities. I 100% agree with you. There is a legal question about whether or not they are allowed to enforce law on the streets. If there is an actual insurrection uprising, and I would argue what's happening at the Portland facility is, if that's happening somewhere else in the city, I would argue the National Guard 100% can go in. However, homeless people on the streets, that's a question. I did see this one here from the 206, from Randolph. He says, Ari, ICE is indeed going after one single demographic. That would be the criminal demographic. Very good. Rob says, declare homeless encampments a national security risk because they're narco-terror distribution centers and remove them all. Very, very, very good. I like that. So what happens? Let's look at the politics of this for a second. Bruce Harrell, worried he's going to lose to Katie Wilson in the mayoral race here in Seattle. So what does he do? He finds the nearest microphone and decides to challenge Trump. Trump, meanwhile, is pulling a Thanos going, I don't even know who you are. King 5, of course, went to find every Democrat they possibly could to say, are you ready for Trump to come to Seattle?
We just heard what's going down in Portland.
Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell took to social media Saturday to take a stand against Trump and his plans to mobilize troops to Portland.
Portland's doing just fine. And I made that very clear to the president this morning.
After the Truth Social post, top Portland and Oregon leaders quickly called a press conference to pressure the feds to stay away. Governor Tina Kotek said she immediately called Kristi Noem and then talked to President Trump to say he was acting on misinformation and outdated media coverage about Portland from 5 years ago. After the murder of George Floyd in 2020, protesters took to the streets of Portland on a regular basis. That ignited intense and violent clashes with police, images routinely broadcast across the country.
In the years since that footage was taken, we reformed our public safety system. We've refocused our community and on our economy, and we've redoubled our efforts to help our most vulnerable.
In the last several months, there have been protests outside the ICE facility in Portland. That appears to have outraged Trump. On Truth Social Saturday, he called the demonstrators members of Antifa and domestic terrorists.
He thinks there are elements here that create an insurrection. I told him there is no insurrection here and that we have this under control.
You don't have this under control. If somebody's rioting against a building and against federal agents for the past 3 months, you don't have it under control. Whoa, wait a minute. Did King 5 just acknowledge there were riots in Portland in 2020? Because now they're saying there were riots. At the time, they were ignoring it. They were absolutely ignoring it. And then at the very, very end, yeah, there's nightly protests, but nothing to worry about. Why did I pick the King 5 story out of all the outlets? Because that's the narrative the left is going with. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Anna and Graham. Anna, what's going on?
Hey, all right. Excuse me. So I was listening to Bennett's take with you earlier about the Portland riots going on. He seems to have forgotten Numerock's situation when she was dealing with all that protester BS happening down in Portland when she was living down there. And she even had a lawsuit against the city because the city wasn't even doing anything about Antifa being like super loud at night. So, I mean, you can see videos. There's literally proof that there was civil unrest over there. I mean, I don't know how you can say there isn't when there's obviously somebody who has come forward. Like, there's even a video out there of her yelling at protesters to stop it with the noise because she can't even sleep at night.
I know which one you're talking about. We saw that video. We played that one on air. But don't forget, there's been, by my math, close to $20 million in settlements paid out here in Seattle. I don't have the numbers on Portland from all their chaos and mayhem back in 2020. But here in Seattle, it's been over or close to $20 million that has been paid out in legal settlements because of the autonomous zone, which the mainstream media said wasn't happening. So now the media takes this one little thing from Fox News and says, oh, see, that's old footage. Literally, you can go on Katie Davenport's page. You should go on Katie Davenport's page. You can see every single night what's happening down there. Anna, appreciate the call. Drive safely. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, it looks like the Democrats are dead set on having a government shutdown. Funny, because just a couple of years ago, not even that long, 1 year ago, they were dead set against one. We'll play that crazy audio for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. As we tick closer to a government shutdown, I don't think the Democrats realize what's about to happen. Under the circumstances and the scenario of a government shutdown, President Trump can just start firing people. So, I mean, I shouldn't be laughing at people's misfortune who are going to lose their jobs, but then he gets the government cuts that the Democrats won't give him. What are the Democrats actually interested in? Vice President J.D. Vance shared this today in a press conference.
First of all, we have to keep essential services functioning as well as possible if the Democrats shut down the government, and Russ has been tasked with making sure that's possible. Now, you asked about negotiations. One of the things I admired about the president, but frankly the entire team's approach during the conversation we just had with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries was, they have some crazy ideas. Giving taxpayer money to illegal aliens for health care, that's a crazy idea. Funding transgender surgeries in Peru, that's a crazy idea. But they had some ideas that I actually thought were reasonable, and they had some ideas that the president thought was reasonable. What's not reasonable is to hold those ideas as leverage and to shut down the government unless we give you everything that you want. There were multiple times where Leader Jeffries or Leader Schumer would say, you know what, we should be doing this. And the President of the United States would say, yeah, absolutely, let's have that conversation. But we're going to do it in the context of the people's government being open. We're not going to let you take the people's government hostage and then give you everything that you want. And that's really the state of the negotiation. Yeah, let's have a conversation. Let's have a negotiation. But we're not going to shut down the government because we won't give the Democrats everything that they want.
So that's actually a very, very important point. Now, I know everybody's going to have their own opinion on this, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, but that's a very, very important point. Have you ever heard the Democrats in any of these situations say we liked some of the things the Republicans were doing? I don't.
How about no?
Exactly. I don't recall ever hearing them say that. Instead, it was always, you're holding us hostage. You're terrorists. You're going to shut down the government. Now, you're going to hear the Republicans blaming the Democrats because it is the Democrats who are holding this thing up. But it's interesting to me that J.D. Vance went out there and said, yeah, there are some things we agree with the Democrats on. You know what I think the problem is? The bipartisanship is completely gone. Why are the Democrats wanting this shutdown? Because they think that the American people will get on their side during a shutdown. That's their gamble. What could happen is that their polling is going to get even worse because right now they just look like it's sour grapes. You didn't get what you wanted, like as he says, the money for transgender surgeries in Peru, so you decided to shut down the government. Right now, polling is on the Republican side for a shutdown, and that is rare. That's not normally what happens. Normally, it always is bad for Republicans. The Democrats are hoping they get this shutdown so they can regain some ground in the polls because they don't know what else to do. This is them being the party of the resistance. Speaker Johnson said something similar.
Their counterproposal, what Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are demanding, is that they claw back the $50 billion that we put into the rural hospital support structure. They want to take that back. We're not going to do that. We passed that because we have to allow for that. Also, if they shut the government down, not only are troops unpaid, federal workers, and all the services that everybody relies upon, but the WIC program, the nutrition program, women, infant, and children, they will not get that program, will not be funded. FEMA won't be funded. We have hurricanes off the coast of the United States right now. This is serious business. You have telehealth, you have mental health services, all that's funded by the government would stop if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats have their way. The Democrat shutdown would be damaging for the country. We can't allow for it.
So what do the Democrats actually want? What is the big thing that they want out of these negotiations? Here's Chuck Schumer.
We have very large differences on health care and on their ability to undo whatever budget we agree to through rescissions and through impoundment, as well as pocket rescissions.
So that sums it up. What he doesn't like is that they are taking illegal aliens off Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. He also doesn't like that they're cutting waste through rescissions and other methods they have at their disposal. So basically what it is he doesn't like the results of the election, so he's trying to get what he wants by holding the government hostage. Now, let's be real. Democrats, Republicans both do this. No matter who's in the minority, they just become the party of resistance. But the things the Democrats are saying they want, if you actually look at them, they're crazy. We should not be paying for illegal aliens to have health care. So once again, I think that the polling on this is going to continue to show that the U.S. population says the Democrats are out of their mind. Plus, all Republicans need to do is play these on repeat, these clips from just a year ago.
If the government shuts down, it will be average Americans who suffer most. A government shutdown means seniors who rely on Social Security could be thrown into chaos as the Social Security Administration limits certain services like benefit verifications or fixing errors in payments. Our veterans could see regional VA offices shut down and support services put on halt. Some of our military service members could be forced to work without pay. Families who benefit from WIC and other nutrition programs could see benefits halted.
All the Republicans need to do is play the Democrats' words back to them again and again and again and put them out for the American people to see. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Leonard. Leonard, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. I'm up here at Northwest Hospital right now because I fell over at the Link-Light Rail Station over there in Shoreline and dislocated my left middle finger and my right pointer finger.
I'm sorry to hear that. That sounds awful. Speedy recovery, Leonard.
Yeah, thank you. My thing about this whole thing about Portland, having troops there, I think the next target these troops are going to be invading are going to be in Seattle. And that's going to cause Bruce Harreld to go bonkers.
Oh, the thing is, it'll also probably deliver him the election, too. Bruce Harrell's excited for the National Guard to come to Seattle if they're actually going to come. Leonard, speedy recovery. Hope you feel better soon. When we come back, my friends, I spent the weekend reading Kamala Harris's book, So You Don't Have to. And it's something. Tell you all about that insanity when we come back. You'll listen to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I spent the weekend reading Kamala Harris's book, 107 Days. Now, for those of you watching on the live stream over at Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, you can see I have some notes. And I'll show you something else. I'm only about a third of a way into the book. Those are just my notes. All those Post-its are just my notes on the first third of this piece of garbage. First of all, it is a burn book. It is going after everybody who she thinks is to blame for this, Regina George style. No wonder she's got no friends left anymore. She wrote about all of them in the book. But there was one passage in particular that I thought was some of the most bigoted stuff I've ever seen, where she basically says she didn't pick Pete Buttigieg to be her running mate because he's gay. I kid you not, it is in the book. So, I wish there was an audio version of the book. I haven't found it yet because I would love to hear her say this in her own words. Instead, you get me reading Kamala Harris. So, my friends, it's been a while, but we bring you another episode of Deep Thoughts with former Vice President Kamala Harris. Of the 8 names on the list for vetting, I might as well say that Pete Buttigieg was my first choice. Harvard grad, multilingual Rhodes Scholar, business consultant, naval intelligence officer, twice elected Midwestern mayor. Cabinet secretary, loving husband and father, he was well qualified in so many respects. I love Pete. I love working with Pete. He and his husband Chasen are friends. He is a sincere public servant with a rare talent of being able to frame liberal arguments in a way that makes it possible for conservatives to hear them. He knows the importance of taking our case to people who aren't usually exposed to it, and is magnificent at sparring with opponents on Fox News. He would have been an ideal partner if I were a straight white man, but we were already asking a lot of America to accept a woman, a black woman married to a Jewish man. Part of me wanted to say, screw it, let's just do it. But knowing what was at stake, it was too big of a risk. And I think Pete knew that too. To our mutual sadness. Hang on. Just want to make, Mike, you were listening that whole time. You heard that the way I read that, right? She's literally saying she didn't pick the guy because he's gay. And she didn't think America could accept a gay man as vice president. Well, if he's so well qualified, then what he identifies as shouldn't matter. If you think he's so good at debating on Fox News and Navy and Mayor and all that, no. What would have happened is all of us would have gone after his record of having to fill potholes with Pizza Hut because he couldn't actually get the potholes filled with his disastrous record as transportation secretary. That's what we would have gone after. Mike, you heard what I heard right there, right? Yeah, okay.
Oh,
just
yeah.
making sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So that's not just me. This whole book, by the way, is her burning everybody in the Democratic Party and saying, here's who's to blame, but she never takes a little look at herself and go, if I hadn't been such a terrible candidate and I hadn't made dumb decisions like this, then you know what? Maybe I would have had a better chance. Let me ask you this to the audience. Really, guys, just objectively, who would have been a better VP candidate? Tim Walz or Pete Buttigieg? I think we know the answer. Yeah, I don't think it was Tim Walz. I think Pete Buttigieg would have been a much better pick. Oh, she discusses Josh Shapiro and everybody else later in the book. Way later. She gets into all that. But to say, oh, I'm going to pick Tim Walz, what are his qualifications? What are his qualifications?
Jazz hands.
There you go. That's all he's got going for him. Oh, well, he fired paintballs at people from the National Guard when they were out on their decks during COVID. Aha! Let's pick him. The whole book is like this, by the way. Is she trying to get in good with Pete Buttigieg, where he's the only one she doesn't burn in this book, but still manages to burn him in the book? By the way, somebody told me about this clip. where apparently she was on Rachel Maddow the other night, and Rachel Maddow was even drilling her about this, saying, that's literally homophobic, what you're writing there. That's what it is. This is crazy. This whole book is insane, by the way.
Well, let me wade into controversy here a little bit, and you're welcome to take calls on the Warrior Injury studio line, 206-421-5757. That's the same number for text. Is she wrong?
Well, here's my thing. I don't think it would.
Because I don't know that she is.
I don't think it's because he's gay. Scott Bessent is gay, and nobody ever talks about the fact that he's gay. They go, we don't like tariffs. They don't talk about that. I don't think she's right, but here's something else. For her demographic, it's all about intersectionality. It's all about identity. So if you're going to go with checks this box, checks this box, checks this box, she should have picked him for her demographic. You think Tim Walz has a better chance? I'll say this outright. I think Pete Buttigieg would have been a much better pick. The left, he is their messiah. They love him. He checks every box for them. For us, we don't care that he's gay. We care that his policies suck and that he created a mushroom cloud when a train derailed, spilling toxic chemicals all over the place. We care that he grounded a whole bunch of airplanes because he wanted to update airman to pilots because apparently it was sexist. That's what we care about. We care about the fact that he couldn't get potholes filled. I don't think it has anything whatsoever to do with the fact that he's gay. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. What hasn't subsided over the weekend, and in fact gotten worse, is the assaults on signature gatherers and the harassment of signature gatherers for Let's Go Washington. We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 4:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including 2 tickets to see Adam Sandler. But before we get to any of that, my friends, the assaults, the attacks, the vandalizing, the harassment of signature gatherers here for Let's Go Washington, who are trying to get the initiatives on the ballot that keep men out of women's sports, boys out of girls' sports, and make sure that parents have the right to know what's going on in their kids' education, have continued. So over the weekend, there are even more documented incidents of this. The violence is getting worse. Tell me again about how it's all right-wing violence and not left-wing violence. I'm so tired of hearing about that. It's also ironic to me, who I assume most of these people who think that Trump is a threat to democracy are the ones attacking the people who are actually trying to do democracy, who are the ones out there gathering signatures. Now, for those of you who haven't been able to sign this yet, I know a lot of you want to know where to sign these things. And I'm going to tell you this. You know the easiest way to do it? Go on Let's Go Washington's website. Just Google Let's Go Washington. You will find it, and they will mail you one of these sheets. All you got to do is fill it out and send it back. You don't even have to spend any gas money to go find these signature gatherers. I know some of you like doing it in person, and I know you like doing that. So if you go to Let's Go Washington, they will tell you where there is one in your neighborhood. And in fact, hopefully we're going to be setting up signing events soon, which I will be at, which other people will be at, so that way you can come and sign them. But it's insane that these things have continued. And in fact, I'll urge you this. If you are one of these signature gatherers and something like this happens to you, you should, of course, tell Let's Go Washington, but send us the information as well. We want to show everybody what's going on. And in fact, things have gotten so bad that Attorney General Nick Brown even put out a tweet on it. I was shocked, by the way, shocked. He said, people have the right to advocate for their beliefs without fear of violence. What happened in Tacoma is unacceptable, and we'll do everything we can to assist local authorities in enforcing any violations of the law. We must do everything we can to protect the democratic process. Okay, great. That's wonderful. What's he talking about? The story of the woman who was booked into Pierce County Jail for malicious mischief after allegedly tampering with a signature gathering effort by Let's Go Washington, according to King 5 News. That's what he shared. Great, fantastic. So when are you going to do that? When are you going to do that? By the way, haven't seen Nick Brown on any TV outlets. So why didn't you give a statement to the... Now, maybe they didn't run with your statement, but I think that if you held a press conference, as opposed to going, we don't want Trump coming to Seattle, maybe hold a press conference, stop attacking signature gatherers, or you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I guess maybe we should be happy that the guy who was on Survivor took a few minutes out of his schedule to actually tweet that. But, you know, actions speak louder than words. I'd even take a press conference at this point, but I don't think he'll actually do it. Okay, let's take the small wins we can. What did Steve Hobbs say? Secretary of State of Washington. He tweeted, signature gathering is a right. Washington state law protects voters' rights to take part in the signature gathering process for ballot initiatives and referenda. Interfering with this process is illegal, considered a gross misdemeanor. If someone is potentially trying to intimidate or disrupt this process, report it to local law enforcement. Every voter deserves to participate in our democratic process free from pressure, threats, or interference. Questions, call the Secretary of State's office. Okay, nice. But once again, where are you guys? Where's the press conference? Where's the anything? Because you guys could tweet all you want. How many people are actually on Twitter? In fact, probably very few of the people you want are on Twitter because they're all over on Blue Sky. Are you putting this up on Blue Sky also, or whatever other social media platform? You know, I haven't heard from Bob Ferguson. Hang on, let me check his Twitter account and see what he's putting up here. Where is Bob Ferguson? Oh, Bob Ferguson's not even in the state right now. Had plenty of time to tweet about Trump, but no time whatsoever to tweet about, isn't he the one who always saying a threat on our democracy, an attack on our democracy? Nowhere to be found. According to the Center Square, questions have been mounting about Washington State Governor Bob Ferguson's sudden absence. On Friday, the Center Square received multiple messages from various sources showing a screenshot of the Office of the Governor alert. Governor Bob Ferguson will be traveling outside Washington from Thursday, September 5th through Thursday, October 9th. Whenever the governor travels out of state, per state law, and the lieutenant governor serves as acting governor of Washington. That's Denny Heck, by the way. The alert was not available on the governor's official website on Friday. Now, following multiple email inquiries, Ferguson's communications director, Brianna Aho, responded, "The governor is on vacation through next week, and he'll be at a conference and meetings on the East Coast. He is in daily contact with the office." Now, Representative Chris Corey told the Center Square lawmakers were not given notice. You know who else wasn't given notice? The press. This ties into what we've been talking about for a long, long time of Ferguson not being available to the media, not telling them when he's going places. He doesn't want to get the hard questions, so he's been hiding from them. I saw he had plenty of time to tweet out a story that Leonardo DiCaprio might be playing him in a movie. What movie are you going to make about Bob Ferguson? How I Destroyed Washington in less than a month, in one legislative session. Bob Ferguson, really? You're going to have Leonardo DiCaprio playing Bob Ferguson? Has Leonardo DiCaprio lost his looks that much? What context could there be for that? But for real here, where's Bob? Most people don't take vacations at the end of September. You've got kids in school. Where is Bob Ferguson? You want to take a vacation, that's what summer's for. There's no legislative session going on right now. Where did he go? What are these conferences he's going to? By the way, listeners, if you want to have some fun and find out, file public disclosure requests to find out where he is. File public disclosure requests and ask for the governor's itinerary of where he's at. Because he has to take the Washington State Patrol with him. And if he takes the Washington State Patrol with him, you're paying for whatever vacation he's going on. So just find out where he went. So completely MIA. Completely MIA. By the way, there's also a rumor going around that he hasn't moved into the governor's mansion. Now, I'm fine with that. Doesn't mean we're paying for him to eat every night. But at the same time, he is MIA. He's supposed to be the governor. I guess we should be thankful because the longer he's gone, the less trouble he can make. But the next time he says threat to democracy, just say, where were you when this was happening? Haven't seen anything. But mind you, what he put in place is still working, even though he's not. So his little domestic extremism and mass violence task force had a little meeting on Friday. And this is after a week of assaults on signature gatherers. And did they talk about this at all? According to the Center Square, no. Instead, they're discussing what constitutes domestic violent extremism. Quote, I think the premise of trying to fix a domestic extremism problem in the state is problematic, said task force member Walla Walla County Sheriff Mark Kreider, who told colleagues at the organization's September 26 meeting. The problem that we're trying to fix is violence created by these things. I think that all the attorneys have shown us is that you can't be the thought police and people police ideas and thoughts on what is and what is not extremism, but you can police their actions. He added that sets up for failure because there's in my opinion, no way we can define domestic extremism and come to a resolution on what is extremism. I got a question. How can you create a task force without knowing what it is your task force is supposed to be dealing with? So this is what they're doing? The Domestic Violent Extremism Task Force is deciding what is domestic violent extremism? We already have definitions. The FBI already has definitions. Webster's already has definitions. But this is what you guys are spending time on? I peeked in on this meeting. And you know what it sounded like they were doing? I'm going to pull the audio tonight if I remember. I'm going to look it up and pull different clips, Mike. What they were doing was discussing how they can get around the Second Amendment, how they can criminalize the Second Amendment, and how they could get rid of law enforcement. That's what it sounded like to me for the little bits I dropped in on. Earlier this year, the task force released its preliminary report on how to treat the issue from a public health perspective, yet failed to include a definition. Though it lists various definitions used by the FBI as well as private organizations like the Anti-Defamation League. Oh, please, let's do things according to the Anti-Defamation League. Do you know what they did recently? People have been mining their website. Why? Because the ADL is one of the organizations that the left is using to try and claim that all the violence is coming from the right, not the left. Let me tell you something about how the ADL collects statistics. And I know this from reaching out to them when the death threats against my family were not listed. You know what they said? We only record statistics that are reported to us. So that means they're not pulling hate crimes from the FBI. They're not pulling hate crimes from local police. They're not pulling hate crimes from county sheriffs. Just from what their own people report to them. Who do you think's reporting stuff to the ADL? The people who fund the ADL, the people who follow the ADL, which means everything on their website is going to be white supremacists, white supremacists. There's white supremacists everywhere. Guys, are the white supremacists in the room with you right now? So the ADL. The ADL has been such a detriment. They were founded to fight anti-Semitism. Now what they do is just, well, what do the Democrats say? We're going to promote that. That's what we're going to go with. So you're using the ADL's definition? They had Turning Point USA listed as an extremist group on their website. A group of college kids. Well, you guys suck because my daughter wants to start a chapter at her school, as do many other people's kids. Because you know what? They want to have traditional family values. Tell me, how is that domestic violent extremists? How is that extreme at all? That they want to have traditional family values. By the way, ADL, you guys are supposed to protect Jewish interests. You know, Turning Point USA has a whole program kit they send out on Israel. But you guys listed them as a domestic extremist group. Yeah, the ADL doesn't deserve anybody's money at all anymore. Although the task force purpose is to focus on domestic violent extremism, according to Center Square, discussions at September 26 meeting veered into restrictions on law enforcement officials and whether the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents should be allowed to wear masks to protect their identities for fear of doxing or retaliatory violence. This is what we're talking about, right? Hey, guys, you might need the feds to help you fight domestic violent extremism. Oh, wait, you're not actually interested in that. You're just interested in labeling conservatives domestic violent extremists. Cynthia Miller Idris with the Polarization and Extremism Research and Innovation Lab. Does that stand for anything? Peril? Oh, peril! I see what you did there. I see. Told the task force we've been emphasizing the vigilantism is dangerous and that releasing people's personal information. Whereas the 20,000 list of people who supposedly celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder or the release of information about ICE agents or whatever it is a risk. It puts children at risk. It puts family members at risk. Sometimes it's the wrong address. So why don't you stop doxing them ICE agents, huh? Mary McCord with the Institute for Constitutional Advocacy and Protection. Hang on, we're going to do this again, Mike. The ICAP? That doesn't work. Okay, that one doesn't spell anything. Told the task force it's a terrible practice for public officials, and we're not talking about a COVID situation, to mask themselves in order to make sure their identities are unknown. I do think there are some good constitutional arguments that public officials should not be masked. Hey, how about those domestic violent extremists that support Hamas? How about Antifa, that was recently labeled a domestic violent terrorist organization? I don't see you guys discussing any of that. Instead, you're discussing the ICE agents? California recently passed a bill to take effect in January that will prohibit ICE agents from wearing masks, though the Trump administration argues it violates the Constitution's supremacy clause. The same day as the task force meeting, Blaze Media video footage of an anti-ICE protest in Illinois recorded protesters screaming, "Shoot ICE, shoot the blankers." I can't say that word on radio. Protesters in the area later attempted to stop a federal vehicle from entering an ICE facility. At the task force meeting, McCord acknowledged prior anti-ICE protests occurring in cities like Dallas, noting there has been a 1,000% increase in threats against ICE agents. However, she added that my own view is when you become a law enforcement officer, this is part of what you accept, that you should comport your behavior in a way the public finds confidence in, and then you will not need to mask yourself. I'm sorry, what? And by the way, why are you talking about Dallas? Did you not see what happened here in June? Literally in June. Oh, wait, I forgot. Your last task force meeting was right after 30 people were arrested at the University of Washington for causing over $1 million worth of damage to a brand new engineering lab. You guys didn't discuss that, even though they were all masked Antifa and Hamasnik lunatics. You guys didn't discuss that. When the Center Square reached out to Representative Jim Walsh, Representative Aberdeen, for comment on McCord's statement regarding masks, he wrote, "The incoherent stupidity of the comments made as part of the Ferguson Brown domestic violent extremism scam is depressing. It's an embarrassment to Washington, every taxpayer in the state who's footing the bill. I'd say it's a joke, but it's not funny enough to qualify. If Ferguson and Brown had any sense of shame, They would cancel this travesty, return the money to the operating budget, where they could waste it on other less hideous grifts. By the way, the task force final report and recommendations are due to the governor and the state legislature by December 1st of next year. And their next meeting is scheduled for January 9th. What do you think they're going to accomplish during that time? What do you think they're going to do during that time? I think things are only going to get worse. You know what? I keep forgetting to do this. I have to file a public disclosure request for all the all the information from the domestic violent extremism hotline. I need to get that. I need to get all that information. Hey, it's public records. We should get every single report. We were able to get Inslee's snitch list, so I think we should get this one as well. Mike, should we do an under-over like a Price is Right type deal? How many times do you think we're on it? How many times do you think we triggered anybody? Ari Hoffman posted this. Ari Hoffman said that. I'm gonna just say once, so that way I don't go over. Right? Guaranteed that's what's on this thing. We should totally analyze it.
Big Mike humped that big red horn.
He did it as I was walking by at the Washington State Fair from the KVI booth. He did. He triggered me. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I know what that means.
Exactly. That's what we're going to find.
Congratulations. You played yourself.
Oh, crazy, crazy stuff. When we come back, my friends, another tragedy where we have another tragic shooting, this time in Michigan at a church. We'll give you the details on the suspect and how this actually does fit the norm of the violence rising we're seeing in the country. We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 4:45, your chance to get 2 tickets to see the Sandman himself, Adam Sandler, at Climate Pledge Arena at the end of October. Yet another reason, always keep your radio tuned. 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us, KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Another tragedy, another terrible shooting over the weekend. This one was, wow, just absolutely awful. The one at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints over the weekend in Michigan. This was awful. But was more awful, before we get to the specific details of this case, was how everybody jumped to their particular narrative. And actually, it took my wife calling me out for this for me to realize how bad it was. So I said, what are we going to find out about the shooter? And she says, sweetie, there are people dead in a church. Don't worry about the narrative. And she's 100% right. Everybody in the media, right, left, center, everybody was so desperate to make this thing match their narrative that they forgot there are dead people in a church again. Now, I can actually look at this the way we look at all these shootings, all these attacks. We are not dealing with mental health effectively in this country. Okay, so this guy was a veteran. This guy, allegedly. I still have to say allegedly. He hasn't been convicted of anything. So this guy was a veteran and apparently had some issues. In fact, if you look at his family's social media accounts, they were talking about the issues he was having. So whether it's this, whether it's trans, whether it's anything else, we are not dealing with mental health effectively in this country. As I say, anytime there's a shooting, a crazy person is going to do crazy things. A normal person does not drive a truck loaded with explosives into a church, light fire to the place while shooting people. A normal person doesn't walk in to a school, a Christian school, and start shooting kids. A normal person doesn't do that. What I keep coming back to is what we describe as mental health issues. Unfortunately, the left has taken the trans stuff out of DSM-5, which is the Gray's Anatomy of the Mind. They don't want to acknowledge that. And some people on the right are trying to bury the story because they go, we don't want to hear anything bad about our vets. Guys, how about we all just decide mental health is mental health, and we should be addressing it that way. So this guy was having PTSD or whatever other issues it was. You know the problem we have? We have made it so hard to involuntarily commit anybody, we barely ever do it anymore. It's not until after something like this we go ahead and do it. And by then, it's far, far too late if we do it at all. Do you know there are laws on the books here in King County that talk about how you can involuntarily commit somebody if they are a threat to themselves and others? King County has a post on their website saying they will not enforce that, which is why you have the problems out on the streets. And whether it's trans ideology, whether it's PTSD from veterans, or whether it's the homeless drug addicts on the streets, we are not dealing with mental health effectively. And we should be saying, okay, guys, let's stop with the political arguments. Let's actually discuss what happened in this case. So, according to the Post Millennial, a gunman who rammed his truck into a Michigan church opened fire on worshipers and set the building on fire, likely targeted members of the Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because he hated them, according to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, citing the FBI. 4 people were killed, 8 others were wounded before police shot the suspect dead. The violence happened Sunday morning at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc, about 60 miles northwest of Detroit. Authorities identified the attacker as 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford of Burton, Michigan, a Marine Corps veteran who had served in Iraq. Sanford was also killed after exchanging gunfire with authorities. Police Chief William Rain said the assault began around 10:25 a.m. when Sanford drove his vehicle into the church during services attended by hundreds. Quote, the attacker then opened fire with an assault-style rifle, firing several rounds at individuals within the church. So the left automatically jumped to gun control, gun control, gun control. Once again, the gun does not shoot itself unless it's a Decepticon named Megatron. Here, you going to ban trucks too? Are you going to ban trucks? Because that's what we're talking about here. A crazy person will find a way. The attacker then opened fire with an assault-style rifle, firing several rounds at individuals within the church, said the police chief. Officers confronted Sanford minutes later, shooting and killing him in the parking lot at 10:33 a.m. 2 victims died from gunshot wounds, while 2 others were later found inside the burned structure. Police said Sanford used gasoline or another accelerant to ignite the fire. Some individuals were initially unaccounted for as investigators worked to clear the damaged building. Caroline Levitt told Fox and Friends that the FBI was leading the case and believed Sanford was motivated by hatred toward Latter-day Saints. Quote, from what I understand based on my conversation with the FBI director, all they know right now is that this individual who hated people of the Mormon faith. The press secretary added that the federal agents are examining Sanford's property and digital records. They are trying to understand more about this, how premeditated it was, how much planning went into it, whether he left a note. Levitt said investigators will be treating any signs of future threats with urgency. Quote, the FBI is going to treat those as public safety emergencies and investigate them to try and prevent such violence from taking place in our country, adding that the administration is fully committed to not only investigating these crimes, but prosecuting them to the fullest extent of the law. She also praised the response of first responders, saying local police officers were on the ground of the scene within minutes and neutralized the shooter, no doubt saving lives, and they should be commended. Our police officers are heroes, and this president will always respect them and support them. Michigan State Police reported additional bomb threats at other locations on Sunday, though all were cleared. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints confirmed that multiple individuals were injured and asked for peace and healing for all involved. President Trump described the incident as yet another targeted attack on Christians in the United States of America. Now, I will say one standout person, I don't normally credit her with anything, is Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I'm not a fan of hers. I don't like her at all. But she said, speculation on the motive is unhelpful and can be downright dangerous. And she called on people to lower the temperature of rhetoric. By the way, classy move. She could have gone with the, oh, he had American flags on his truck. Oh, he was a Trump supporter. Oh, any of that. She could have done that. She didn't do that. Unfortunately, right now, we don't know a lot about the shooter. The left is trying to paint him as MAGA. The right is trying to paint him as, I don't know what, anything other than MAGA. But at the end of the day, the argument we should be having is how to deal with mental health issues in the country. That is what we should be talking about. And if somebody wants to cut off a piece of their anatomy, how that is a mental health problem. If somebody wants to kill other people, that is a mental health problem. If somebody wants to kill themselves, that is a mental health problem. And unfortunately, because of politics, we are not actually having that conversation. What we need to do is we need to have that conversation and talk about involuntary commitment. I know everybody thinks involuntary commitment and they think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and that we're going to start lobotomizing McMurphy. That's not what we're talking about here, guys. That's not what we're talking about. You want to have a real discussion on how to treat PTSD, how to treat body dysmorphia, how to treat all these other problems. We should be having that conversation, but unfortunately, everybody's too political over it. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from George in Kenmore. George, what's going on?
Hey, George of Arabia here, and I'm from Missouri, and my family stayed behind and stayed Mormon. We're actually the reorganized branch. There's 3 or 4 branches of the Mormon church that split off when they left and went to Illinois and then Utah under Brigham Young because Joseph Smith had been killed he was shot while he was in jail.
I only know what I've seen in the musical, George. I know very little about the Mormon faith.
Well, the thing is, the Governor Boggs of Missouri, his son was in the audience when Joseph Smith fell out the window, that kind of thing. So there was a Mormon extermination order till 1976. They used to put it on the church calendar. But anyway, when you're talking Mormons, and I went to University of Utah as well, there's just total hatred, discontent, and there's competing groups, and there was some group, I think they were the Hedrickites or something like that. You may recall the Temple Lot is in Independence, Missouri, no relation to Harry Truman. But some guy went in that place and firebombed this beautiful old Victorian church they had there. And so there's been erratic behavior for the whole time. and they were tarred and feathered and all that, and
Right, but the point I'm making, George, and I'm not saying this isn't fascinating, and I understand where you're coming from. You're saying is that this may have been a motive. I get that, but we don't know that yet. And the problem I'm having right now is that people aren't trying to get that deep into it like what you're talking about. People are saying either this is the right or the left, and they're not even bringing up the religious angle. Instead, they'd rather go into their political camps. Now, I knew there's a little bit of this because yesterday somebody corrected me and said, don't call them Mormons, call them Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because there's difference and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I get all that. I get there's distinctions that I am not aware of. But unfortunately, that's not the discussion anybody's having. The discussion everybody's having instead is, politics. How can I frame this to bash the other side? And I think that's the problem because they're overlooking not just the religious implications, but the mental health implications as well. George, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, Brian Haywood from Let's Go Washington will be joining us to discuss the attacks on the signature gatherers across our state. We'll give you those details plus so much more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Over the weekend, my friends, there were more attacks, more assaults, more disruption of signature gatherers who are out there collecting signatures for the initiatives for Let's Go Washington to keep men out of women's sports and to make sure that parents have rights to know what's going on with their kids' education. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line to discuss, the founder of Let's Go Washington, Brian Haywood. Thanks so much for being back with us today.
So fantastic to talk to you, Ari. We got a lot going on now. As you mentioned, over the weekend, they've escalated the violence about 10 times what it was last year when we were doing this.
I find it ironic, and not in a good way, that the very people who claim that Trump is threatening democracy or democracy is at risk or they're trying to take down the pillars of democracy are the same ones who are attacking an actual avenue for democracy like signature gathering for initiatives.
And they're doing it. It's a coordinated effort as well. I can see them coordinating online. Hey, go to the stores and disrupt and yell. Don't go and engage people, which would be a democratic thing to do. They're suggesting ways to thwart anybody from even listening to us or being able to sign their name. And it's absolutely right. There's hypocrisy all over this group.
Yeah, it's a little insane to watch the kind of stuff that's going on over on some parts of the internet where you see them literally discussing targeting you guys. So this stuff is in writing. They're very, very clear about what they're doing. Have you heard from the governor? Have you heard from the attorney general? Have you heard from the secretary of state? I saw a couple tweets from them, but tweets are well and good. It doesn't mean they're actually going to do anything.
Well, and I think it was a recycled ChatGPT tweet that the governor sent out. I mean, it's like that's pretty sad when you can't even do an original ChatGPT. You have to regurgitate one. But that's the only thing we've seen is a very, very brief ChatGPT comment by the governor, who seems to be out of the state until October 7th anyway. I don't know if he's in hiding from his bad poll numbers, but nothing from the attorney general or the secretary of state.
Yeah, it looks like Bob Ferguson's been in deep hiding. Nobody goes on vacation at the end of September. I understand you've got a legislative session and other stuff going on, but that's a really weird time, especially because he's got kids in school. Yet nobody knows where Bob Ferguson actually is. Have you heard anything?
We're going to start putting out a "Where's Waldo? Where's Bob?" Missing child alert to try to find him. So
we're talking with Brian Haywood, who's the founder of Let's Go Washington, about the violence targeting signature gatherers who are out there collecting signatures for the initiatives across Washington state. And we've had hit and runs. We've had people who are screaming and yelling and calling names. And all of this stuff is illegal. It's blatantly illegal. Has any law enforcement said to you they're going to start arresting people?
There's actually somebody told me there's been like 19 arrests. I don't know the actual number. We're trying to get track of all the police reports filed and tracking things down. We actually, this weekend on Sunday, there was actually someone came up to the signature gatherers and said, "I'm going to go get my gun and come back for you." And then inside the store said to another patron in the store, "I'm going to get my gun and come back to these guys," and was sort of threatening. And we called the police. So and hopefully that's just it's just a threat and not real. Right? It's just an intimidation tactic. But we're seeing the level of intensity sort of increase, and we've got some really brave people out there that are still trying to talk. And what ends up happening, the more threats there are, the more incidences there are, the more people get upset and come and sign the initiative. So people are being brave and coming and signing their name, even when the violence is escalating.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking with Brian Haywood from Let's Go Washington, and I got to ask the question. You don't have to do this. This isn't something you have to do. You're not a Republican operative. You founded this group. Why are you doing this?
Well, this one in particular, I think there's a couple of reasons here on this one. I believe really strongly that the family unit is one of the most important inventions God ever made. And when you take the parental right to know what's going on with your kids away from them, that's dangerous to society, and regardless of whether you have kids in the system or not. So that's a bad thing. And then punching back against bullies is part of it as well. We passed this with an overwhelming majority, with hundreds of thousands of signatures, and then the legislature just came back and said, we were all just playing a game here. Now we're going to take this away, and specifically took out the rights of parents to know what's going on with their kids. And I think the only way that you can send a message to a bully, which is what they were, is to punch back. And so that's why we're doing that one. The fairness in girls' sports one, to me, I can't even believe that we're having this conversation. Who in the world really, really thinks that it's fair for biological males to compete in girls' sports? And the fact that it's come to this state where the director of the OSPI is threatening schools if they don't allow biological males to compete in girls' sports means that we're so far on the crazy end of the spectrum that there has to be a punchback. And I think this is just an attempt to really, someone has to stand up and do something, and I feel that responsibility.
I gotta say, that's really, really noble of you, but also it's something that I've made the point of before on the show, is that the majority of girls who are playing sports are not going for athletic scholarships. They're not going for a place on the athletic teams in the Olympics or anything else. They're doing it because they need the credit or because they just like to play sports. And to have the fear of your daughter getting injured because somebody spikes a volleyball into their face and who's a dude pretending to be a girl, and then they hit the ground and have brain injuries that can plague them the rest of their lives is absolutely terrifying to me. And I think that's something that's gotten lost in the conversation. Do you think the conversation has been too focused on the scholarships and such?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I was just watching that video this morning of that poor girl that gets just annihilated by this guy, and it's how do you respond to that, right? I mean, she's trying to do something, trying to get her life back in order and do something that's meaningful, and I think the important thing we can do is make sure that doesn't happen to begin with.
Yeah, I completely agree. In the last few minutes, we have with Brian Haywood from Let's Go Washington. So over to the Parental Rights Initiative. Basically, you're undoing the mess the Democrats made of the first initiative. This thing was overwhelmingly popular, which is why they passed it in the legislature and then decided to mess with it afterwards once it already became law. Tell me the reaction you're getting from people who are signing this. Are you seeing a broad array of types of people? Are you seeing mostly Republicans? What are you seeing about the people who are coming and actually signing the initiative?
I don't have any statistical data for you yet, but what we found and the comments that I'm getting is that this is not a partisan issue. We did some polling beforehand. We had nearly 80% support, and we found about 50% of the people said that they would actually change their vote for a candidate if they voted differently than the person that was signing the or responding to the survey. So it seems to move people at a broad level, much beyond the partisan breakdown of the state. And I think probably of the two, the fairness in girls sports is the one that gets the most open crossover from people that would normally be on the left.
Wow.
The parental rights one is just a fundamental one, and people don't understand, I guess, the scope of, there's actually a huge amount of support, but I'm finding there's actually a much deeper problem here that some people aren't even aware of what's going on in the schools. We'll have that for another conversation. As I uncover some of that stuff, I'll come back and share it with you.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. Brian Haywood, founder of Let's Go Washington, thank you for all your hard work on behalf of all of us here in Washington to protect girls' sports and also keep parents informed of what their kids are being taught in public schools. Really do appreciate your time today.
Thank you. And if I can make an appeal to everybody out there, if you see a store where they've got signature gatherers, please tell the store how much you appreciate it. Express some love. They're getting a lot of hate from people that are coming up and screaming at them. Tell them that you appreciate them and that you're grateful for their business.
Absolutely, absolutely. Brian Haywood, thank you so much. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, including our Real Deal giveaway, your chance to win fantabulous prizes as Mike and I review the latest movies. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Mike and I didn't have the opportunity to go see any new movies this week, but there was a lot of news coming out of Hollywood. So first one, this according to Fox News, Jimmy Kimmel's ratings spike was short-lived. Disney briefly suspended ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live after the host's remarks about the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk sparked widespread backlash. But after an about face from Disney, the liberal comedian returned last Tuesday and drew in 6.5 million viewers. However, since then, he has dropped over 64%, which it was an artificial spike anyway. It was never going to stay that high. Everybody just tuned in to see what he was going to say about that and then tuned out.
Well, and I would add that that's with the inclusion of the Sinclair affiliates and the Nexstar affiliates who were not included in that initial 6 million.
Excellent
So
point.
you add more networks and ratings continue to slide.
Right. I think this actually feeds into what we were saying was either it was a rating stunt or alternatively, they couldn't come up with anything to replace him with. They said, we need more time to figure this out. Let's wait till his contract's over. Then we'll cancel the guy, which I assume is something on the horizon.
I think that's still going to happen.
Yeah, I think 100%. And then everybody's going to say, oh, it's Trump and the FCC. Or maybe it's nobody watches the show. If everybody who's, you know what I would love to do? I would love to moderate one of the debates between Bruce Harrell and Katie Wilson. And I would love to say, Katie, do you watch the Jimmy Kimmel show every night? Because he had a whole press conference about him. Do you watch the show? Well, that's why he's not on air anymore. It has nothing to do with freedom of speech. Meanwhile, President Trump made an announcement about movies today. Quote on Truth Social, our movie-making business has been stolen from the United States of America by other countries, just like stealing candy from a baby. California, with its weak and incompetent governor, has been particularly hard hit. Therefore, in order to solve this long-time, never-ending problem, I will be imposing a 100% tariff on any and all movies that are made outside the United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. President DJT. There's a problem with this, and actually it's in the truth itself. The problem with this is California made this problem. So, for example, the Avengers movies, a lot of them were filmed in Georgia. They're filmed in other places. This is something that's actually on the local level. For example, even Seattle. What was it? 2 years ago, I was making fun of Sarah Nelson for creating a whole new department to bring filmmaking here. Well, at the end of the day, it really comes down to where is it cheapest to make the movies? So you're trying to drive the business back here, and I get that. But instead, you know what I would have liked instead of the tariffs? Hey, guys, how can we work with states to make movie making cheaper so we can move Hollywood to Missouri or whatever it is? We got lots of undeveloped land in these big states. Who wants to work with the federal government on creating more movie studios and more places? Hey, Seattle will even work with you. I think that's a better approach than the tariffs in this case because you're kicking somebody while they're down. The movie industry has enough problems with the oversaturation of content and not enough people go in the movies anymore. Let's take the Superman movie. It didn't crack $1 billion in box office. And it didn't crack $1 billion in box office, and it wasn't because it was woke or anti-whatever. It wasn't that. It was a fine movie. It was a different take on Superman. Everybody I've spoken to has enjoyed it, even the people like me who took a while to warm up to it. It took a couple viewings, right? But it didn't crack $1 billion because people just aren't going to the movies anymore. Let's do some quick math on what it costs to go to the movies now. Let's say mom and dad out to the movies and have to leave the kids at home. Right off the bat, getting a babysitter is going to be what, $40, $50 or something like that? On top of before anything else. Okay, now let's take people who don't have kids. You're going to go to the movie theater. You're going to shell out for the popcorn. You're going to shell out for the soda. You've already doubled your ticket price, if not tripled your ticket price. Then if there's parking, doesn't matter. Now you're spending on gas. When you just go, you know what? The urgency isn't there anymore. Superman's coming out on HBO Max in just 2 months. I just got to wait, and then I can watch it on the big home theater that Hollywood convinced me to get years ago with surround sound.
You wish it was 2 months. More or less, the theatrical to streaming window is average about 45 days.
There you go.
45 days, a month
Exactly. That's
unheard of when we were kids.
When we were kids, it was you were waiting 6 months to a year to get Independence Day on VHS when it came out. And I know this because Mike grew up like I did. You're running to that video store, you're running to Best Buy for new releases day to get that movie you really, really liked with whatever special promotional item it comes with when they first release it. Mike and I had very similar upbringings in that regard. So now you don't have that anymore. So now you're saying we're going to tariff Hollywood? Guys, I hate the Hollywood elite as much as anybody else in our audience does. But I like going to movies. And that's why the Hollywood elite are still the Hollywood elite. Because we all keep funding this stuff. But now we're funding it on our terms. I don't want to go to your theaters. I don't want to buy your expensive popcorn. I want to watch it from home. I want to pause it. I want to go to the bathroom. And I want to barbecue on my own deck to have my own food while I watch your movie for a lot less than I have to spend on that not so great whatever it is at the theater. That's where we're at now. So I don't think this accomplishes what the president wants it to accomplish. I think what you're better off doing is partnering with local governments for tax incentives or discounts or whatever else. Now, you may say, Ari, it worked in other industries. Yeah, but I don't see it working the same way with this when the industry is already having its own problems. You're trying to resurrect a dying industry.
Unless it's 4D chess and he's trying to put the nail in the coffin in.
Could be that too.
And Hollywood.
Could be that also. But at the end of the day, then who's making the documentary about Trump's life down the road? Who's doing any of that?
Nobody.
Exactly. That's the problem. I mean, if he's trying to do that, fine. If he's trying to say, well, I hope local governments step up and say, here's the incentives, fine. I get all that. I'm just not sure how much you can actually save Hollywood. Now, one more thing is Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny has been selected as the halftime performer of the Super Bowl. And I think MAGA is handling this all wrong. He did demonic stuff. He's trans or cross-dressing or whatever. I don't care. You know what I care about? This guy a month ago said he wasn't going to tour in the U.S. because he's worried about being deported by ICE. So apparently it's I'm willing to compromise my values if I get a big enough paycheck. That's what we're saying here. I got a problem with that. Here's something else. You know what most people said when they said Bad Bunny? Who's Bad Bunny? What's a Bad Bunny? And with all the controversy the NFL has had recently, what happened to after Janet Jackson and her wardrobe malfunction? We're going to get Paul McCartney. We're going to bring in Paul McCartney because it's safe. It's easy. Everybody likes Paul McCartney. What happened to something like that? Instead, they go, we're going to get Bad Bunny because we're trying to get the kids back. Guys, the NFL isn't must-see TV anymore the way it used to be. And as a result of that, they're desperate for ratings, and they think maybe something like this, they thought maybe let's get the controversial guy, and it'll get us more ratings. At the end of the day, most people go, what's Bad Bunny? And they said the NFL is once again doing the political stuff, and we don't want the political stuff. I think that's part of the problem. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. We are giving away 2 tickets to Adam Sandler at Climate Pledge Arena on October 29th. Tickets for Adam Sandler are on sale now. Make sure to pick him up, and he's going to be there with his friends, too. He always brings friends along with him, so make sure you check it out. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win 2 tickets to see Adam Sandler at the Climate Pledge Arena. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, a new peace deal is announced by President Trump. Will it actually work? Is it doomed to failure from the outset? My analysis when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless. Streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45. Your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, plus so much more. But before we get to any of that, my friends, today President Trump announced his plan for peace in the Middle East. Now, let's go over what's going on the ground so you understand the ramifications of everything. Hamas is almost completely destroyed. However, they are winning the PR war. If you ask anybody in Israel, if you ask most Jews who support Israel and love America, they're going to say, we don't care about the PR war. We want Hamas destroyed. But it is a factor. It is definitely a factor. You also have another problem in Israel. You have a problem with you've lost close to 1,000 soldiers, if not more than 1,000 soldiers at this point, to get back how many hostages? In Israel, people are already saying, at what point do we just say, we're not sure we're getting those hostages back? You have another faction in Israel that says, we want those hostages back no matter what, even if it means making peace with Hamas. You have another faction that says, no deals with Hamas as much as we want our loved ones back. We don't want anybody else's loved ones dying because Hamas is emboldened and stays in power and decides to do this again. You also have the woke right starting to say we shouldn't support this anymore. You have the Democrats saying we shouldn't support Israel anymore. So you've got problems with Israel's biggest ally, which is America. Also, people are tired of talking about it. People are tired of trying to ask, what does a war thousands of miles away have to do with us here in America? It's been 2 years. You have another problem where people don't want to show up for their military service in Israel, and it's mandatory. If you're an Israeli citizen, you have to show up for service. Now, it's not a huge problem, but it is a problem where people are saying, why am I going to fight in this? Because the second we win something, we turn around to give it back for the next ceasefire, then we got to go clear the same buildings. We got to go clear the same fake hospitals. We got to do that time and time again. Why are we doing this? Look at all that, put that all together. Those are the facts on the ground. It is in everybody's best interest that this thing come to an end soon. However, there's a few givens. Hamas cannot be in charge of the Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Authority cannot be trusted. And yet the Arab world is always saying, well, if you don't give them a Palestinian state, we're just not on board with any of this. The brilliance of the Abraham Accords by President Trump was he said, forget the Palestinian question. We're going to make peace with everybody else, and the Palestinian issue will take care of itself. And that was the thinking of the time. And actually, it was working perfectly fine until Joe Biden came along and started refunding the Palestinian Authority so they could spend money on terror attacks. The Palestinian Authority is paying the people's families who carried out October 7th. That should tell you everything you need to know about the Palestinian Authority. So, right now, President Trump proposed a deal today. Now, I'm not hot on a lot of this deal, but the points of the deal don't matter. What matters is this. What matters is that if Hamas does not agree to the deal, even though there are concessions to Hamas in this deal, then Israel gets carte blanche to finish the job as long as President Trump is still president of the United States. How long is that going to take is a question when you have to do urban warfare and go door to door. So what exactly is in this deal? 1, Gaza will be de-radicalized terror-free zone that does not pose a threat to its neighbors. Okay, how do you do that? Took a long time to denazify Germany. Took decades to do that. Gaza will be redeveloped for the benefit of the people of Gaza who have suffered more than enough. Okay, that was done when Gaza was given to the Palestinians in 2005, and they promptly raided everything, tore down all the greenhouses, agriculture, everything else. And what they did was they said, okay, we're going to use all the money for terror. If both sides agree to this proposal, the war will immediately end. Israeli forces will withdraw to the agreed-upon line to prepare for a hostage release. During this time, all military operations, including aerial and artillery bombardment, will be suspended. Battle lines will remain frozen until conditions are met for the complete stage withdrawal. Okay, but that still leaves Hamas around. And what if you have to go back in? You're clearing the same places again. Why would you trust them now? Once all the hostages are released, Israel will release 250 life sentence prisoners, a.k.a. terrorists, plus 1,700 Gazans who were detained after October 7th, a.k.a. terrorists, including women and children detained in that context, a.k.a. terrorists. For every Israeli hostage whose remains are released, Israel will release the remains of 15 dead Gazans, a.k.a. terrorists. Not big on that part. Once all hostages are returned, Hamas members who commit to peaceful coexistence and to decommission their weapons will be given amnesty. Definitely not big on that part. But you know what this is? This is the guy in Syria. The guy who's now leading Syria was an al-Qaeda terrorist who is still trying to wipe out the Druze and Christian population in Syria. And we're treating him like he's not a terrorist anymore. What this is trying to do is the myth of the good German soldier. What happened was after World War II, how can you send Nazis back to their families and say they served with honor, they were just following orders? Well, that's what they did. There were a lot of Nazis out there who didn't escape, who just went back to their families and did some horrible, horrible things. This is trying to take a page out of that book, and I'm not sure I'm hot on this. Members of Hamas who wish to leave Gaza will be provided safe passage to receiving countries. Well, they've been running the war from Qatar this whole time. Why do you think they're going to do what you want them to do when they're out there and not try to start Hamas again from somewhere else? I don't like this at all. Upon acceptance of this agreement, full aid will be immediately sent into the Gaza Strip. Okay. Entry of distribution aid will proceed without interference. Okay, whatever. Even though they think the United Nations and the Red Crescent can do it, they were the ones providing weapons to them to begin with. They were the ones, the United Nations was letting them use the schools as missile launch locations. Gaza will be governed by the temporary transitional government of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee. No! Why? The Palestinians are Hamas. They voted for Hamas. They support Hamas. They're the ones holding hostages in their apartments. No! This committee will be made up of qualified Palestinians, international experts. Really, how'd those international experts do last time? A new transitional body, the Board of Peace, which will be headed and chaired by President Donald J. Trump. That's the only part of this I like, with other members of head of state to be announced, including former Prime Minister Tony Blair. Meh. Okay. A Trump economic development plan to rebuild and energize Gaza will be created. Great. We've tried this before. A special economic zone will be established with preferred tariff and access rates to be negotiated. No one will be forced to leave Gaza. Those who wish to leave will be free to do so. Okay. We'll keep going down the rest of this, but basically you get the gist. Now, why are they doing all these things I disagree with? Why is President Trump doing all these things I disagree with? Because this is exactly what the Arab world wants. And it's exactly what he did with the Abraham Accords, where he said, okay, we're going to try this. And they offered up a deal that I went ballistic over. I went absolutely ballistic. I said, how can you offer the Palestinians 90% of what they want? Because President Trump and Jared Kushner knew they would reject it. And when they rejected it, he was able to go to the Arab countries and go, guys, we tried. We tried. What do you want us to do now? If Hamas rejects this deal, they are insane because it's the best one they're ever gonna get. But at the end of the day, you're still negotiating with terrorists. And there's always going to be another Hamas. After the PLO, there was the Palestinian Authority. There was Hamas. There was Palestinian Islamic Jihad. You name it. There's always someone else, and someone else will be emboldened by this to do another October 7th or something worse. We never conceived of something as horrible as October 7th, and look what happened. So now you want to do this again? I hope that President Trump is playing 4D chess. I hope that he is looking at this and saying Hamas is going to reject it because Hamas rejects it every single time. But now there's pressure from the Arab world on Hamas to accept the deal. And even when Hamas has accepted the deal, in the past they have always reneged or failed to live up to their commitments. Otherwise, the war would have been over. This war would have been over if they had held to the ceasefire on October 6th and not actually started the war. This war could have ended on October 8th if Hamas had returned the hostages and surrendered. Israel, if they really wanted to commit genocide, could have carpet bombed the Gaza Strip and this war could have been over on October 8th. All these things are true. My question to you is, the listener, what do you think? Do you think this is 4D chess? Do you think you just want the war over with because you've had enough of it? I want to know what you think. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Here's what the president said earlier today when he announced the deal.
So this is a big
big day, a beautiful day, potentially one of the great days ever in civilization. Things that have been going on for hundreds of years and thousands of years. We're going to, at least we're at a minimum very, very close, and I think we're beyond very close. And I want to thank Bibi for really getting in there and doing a job. We've worked well together, as we have with many other countries, both of us, with many other countries, which is the only way this whole situation gets solved. And I'm not just talking about Gaza. Gaza is one thing, but we're talking about much beyond Gaza. The whole deal, everything getting solved. It's called peace in the Middle East. So today is a historic day for peace, and Prime Minister Netanyahu and I have just concluded an important meeting on many vital issues, including Iran, trade, the expansion of the Abraham Accords, and most importantly, we discussed how to end the war in Gaza, but it's just a part of the bigger picture, which is peace in the Middle East.
I love that he called them the Avraham Accords. Avraham is Hebrew for Abraham. So it's kind of funny, whether that was done on purpose or by accident. I think he's been spending a lot of time with his Jewish family members. I do love that he called them the Avraham Accords, because that's kind of what they are in Israel. But he said this, and I think some of this is the most important part of this entire proposal.
To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, the Board of Peace, sort of a beautiful name, the Board of Peace, which will be headed, not at my request, believe me, I'm very busy, but we have to make sure this works. The leaders of the Arab world and Israel and everybody involved asked me to do this, so it would be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States. That's what I want, is some extra work to do, but it's so important that I'm willing to do it, and we'll do it right, and we're going to put leaders from other countries on, and leaders that are very distinguished leaders, and we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, good man, very good man, and some others, and they'll be named over the next few days, and it'll be quite the board. Working, everybody wants to be on it now. I don't know if that had anything to do. They named me and everybody else wanted to be on it. I guess they figure, well, he's a soft touch. He'll be easy to deal with.
It's great as long as Trump is still there, but Trump isn't president for life, despite what the left is going to tell you. It's not. Question is this 4D chess? You're literally giving the Palestinians, you're giving Hamas a way out. What did Netanyahu say in response to this? Because he actually agreed to this deal.
But if Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, or if they supposedly accept it and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself. This can be done the easy way, or it can be done the hard way, but it will be done. We prefer the easy way, but it has to be done. All these goals must be achieved because we didn't fight this horrible fight, sacrifice the finest of our young men to have Hamas stay in Gaza and threaten us again and again and again with these horrific massacres.
Now, it's really big of Bibi to accept this, and he knows that Hamas is likely not to accept it either, because he's politically done in Israel if he accepts this deal. It's not going to be like the Abraham Accords, where everybody celebrates it. People in the rest of the world will celebrate it, but in Israel, they won't. In Israel, they want the total destruction of Hamas. And there will be very mixed feelings about this, especially people who lost loved ones, to go, we did all this and you're letting them leave? Where's the war tribunals? Where's the hangings for the heads of Hamas? So Bibi knows that Hamas is unlikely to actually accept this deal. And if they do accept this deal, they were likely to violate it in the future. So Art says over on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, he says, if the snake is still moving, keep hitting the snake. Yeah, that's about right. This one here from 206 says, carpet bomb Gaza. This is another one from Jeff and Kent. Hamas will never accept this deal. It's 4D, 5D chess. Unbelievable the rest of the world is so gullible. Yeah. I'll tell you, I don't think people realize what you're fighting against. What you're fighting against here, because it's already on our shores. Hamas has said they want to destroy not just Israel, but also America. Do you remember this clip I played for you last week of the mayor in Dearborn, Michigan, Rashida Tlaib territory, talking to a guy, a priest, by the way, who objected to the fact that a city street was being named after a Hezbollah supporter.
Hezbollah, bombed the embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel it's quite inappropriate.
You are an Islamophobe, and although you live here, I want you to know, as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city, because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence.
That's what you're fighting against. Somebody who wants you gone. Somebody who supports Sharia law. That's what you're fighting against. And New York's about to elect one of these guys as mayor. Even if the war is over in the Middle East, even if it ends, even if Hamas accepts this deal, which I doubt they'll actually follow through on the commitments to, that's what you're fighting against. It's an ideological problem. They're not going to stop trying to kill Americans. They're not going to stop trying to topple the American government. Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, AOC, the rest of them, Zoran Mamdani. That's what they want. And the question is, does this give in, or is this actually a win? Or is President Trump playing 4D chess? Give us a call or a text. Let us know what you think at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Speaking of terrorists, when we come back, a school district decides to honor one, and the Democrats agree. The fight is already here, my friends. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. Yet another reason I always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Paul in Tacoma. Paul, what's going on, man?
Hey. You need to go ahead and do a public broadcast of for the sanity of these liberals that are going ahead and calling the police about those evil guys that from Sandow, Washington, getting all these.
You mean the signature gatherers from Let's Go Washington who are being threatened and harassed?
Yeah. They shouldn't be calling the police. They need to call the social workers. The Greta Gombergs of
Yes, I get it. I get what you're saying. Wait a second. The defund the police crowd is now calling the police because they don't like what somebody is saying? Wait.
Yeah,
Wait. What happened to free speech? What happened to free speech? What happened to we hate the police, right?
Right. They're going to call the social workers. Greta Gomberg goes with Birkenstocks.
Oh, very good. I needed that, Paul. That is excellent. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This one here from John in Auburn. He says, Ari, you are always right. Well, that's why we read your text. Ari, you are always right. The hard way should have been done on October 8th. Right. The problem is that Jews prioritize human life, and that's not really a problem. That's a good thing about us, which is why they want to save those hostages. Don't forget, on October 8th, they didn't even know how many people were missing. But they knew there were hundreds of people missing, and there were 251 hostages who were missing, and they didn't know who was alive, who was dead, but they said, we're going to get those hostages back. I would actually say one of the biggest mistakes of this war was the marketing campaign, for many reasons. But one of them was, release them now, bring them home. No, it should have been, let my people go or you get my plagues. Worked in Egypt. Probably should have tried the same thing. Probably should have tried the exact same thing. This one here. This one from the 425. Somebody tell Ari. Okay, I'm reading your text. Since the UN is so decrepit, that can keep their escape, their escalators running northern teleprompters at all, it's time to tear down the UN and relocate it. I can't think of a better place than Gaza. What do you think? What he's talking about, he or she, is talking about is the escalators weren't working and stopped when President Trump was on them and couldn't keep the teleprompter working either, so President Trump had an hour-long speech. If the UN can't do that, what do you think the odds are of them succeeding in Gaza? Yeah, I don't know why we keep funding this at all. I really, really don't. I really, really don't. This one here, dude in BC, says, you can't play games when you're trying to save the planet. Only God can do that in 7 days. But he must have been... He says it's falling apart. Trump hasn't got a lot of time either. He needs to be reelected somehow. Well, dude in BC, if you live in BC, you can't help get him reelected here. I'm just throwing that one out there for everybody to know. Meanwhile, switching gears over to what's happening a little bit closer to home. So, have you guys seen this post from the Chicago Teachers Union? This was really, really something, by the way. So the Chicago's Teachers Union had this post about Assata Shakur. Assata Shakur, they were praising her as a civil rights activist and how she must be honored. Yeah, that thing got community noted on social media so quickly. Assata Shakur killed a New Jersey state trooper in the 1970s. She was then freed by terrorists from jail while serving a life sentence and then taken away to Cuba. She died in Cuba because she's been on the run. And this is somebody the Chicago Teachers Union is praising? According to the New York Post, lefty groups that paid tribute to Assata Shakur, the fugitive black liberation activist, who recently died after escaping a life sentence for the murder of a New Jersey state trooper in 1973, faced a widespread condemnation of Garden State polls from both parties. Democratic Rep. Mickey Sherrill, who is running for governor in November, was notably silent. Yeah, well, they got enough problems over there with his campaign. Then you've got Democrat Governor Phil Murphy slammed a tribute to Shakur from the Chicago Teachers Union as shameful and depraved. The Chicago Teachers Union, which represents more than 27,000 members, hailed Shakur, who was living in Cuba after a prison break 46 years ago, as a revolutionary fighter in a social media post. Murphy wrote, she was convicted of the murder of a New Jersey state trooper, Werner Forster, who was executed in cold blood. There are so many worthy heroes to celebrate. She is not one of them. Other Garden State polls, including Democratic Representative Josh Gottheimer and GOP Representative Tom Keaton, also paid tribute to Forrester. But Cheryl posted nothing about the trooper by Sunday afternoon and did not respond to the Post request for comment. Republican candidate for governor Jack Citrelli didn't post about Forrester on his social media accounts, but did offer a statement praising the murder of Trooper Forrester is disgraceful. Here in New Jersey, people from all sides of the political spectrum have condemned the attack, except for my opponent. Mickey Sherrill cannot even bring herself to acknowledge Trooper Forrester's death as she runs to appease the radical left. Both Mickey and CTU should be ashamed of themselves. The Democratic Socialists of America account also posted a fawning tribute to Shakur, writing, "We vow to honor the legacy by recognizing our duty to fight for our freedom, to win, to love, protect one another, because we have nothing to lose but our chains." If you want to know who's running the Chicago Teachers Union, look at who they are emulating, the Democratic Socialists of America. Shakur, not even her real name, by the way, was born Joanne Deborah Chesmard, died Thursday at the age of 78 in Havana due to health conditions of advanced age. Wait, I thought their health system is so good. Why is she only dying at 78? If their health system is so good, shouldn't she be around till 100? She and two others were involved in a gunfight with New Jersey State Police troopers after a highway traffic stop on May 2nd, 1973, where she killed the trooper and another officer was wounded. Shakur was found guilty in 1977 of murder, armed robbery, and other crimes, was sentenced to life behind bars, only to escape a New Jersey prison in 1979, with her supporters maintaining she was pursued for crimes she didn't commit or were falsified. CTU wrote, "She refused to be silent. She taught us all it's our duty to fight for our freedom and duty to win." You mean escape incarceration after you killed a state trooper? "We must love and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains." Wait a second. Isn't that exactly what the Democratic Socialists of America wrote? People were quick to point out the horrific crime involving Asada, with a community note added to the CTU's post pointing out that Shakur's conviction and her status on the FBI's 2013 Most Wanted Terrorist list. She was a terrorist and a murderer. And I'm saying this as a civil rights attorney, says New York-based lawyer Andrew Laufer. Somebody else said, "How about we honor the man she murdered instead? She's a cop-killing terrorist. Shame on you. This is really such a disgrace." I find it hard to believe that any organization other than a terrorist organization would openly celebrate this terrorist murderer. And they're exactly right. By the way, some Democratic lawmakers shared it as well. Summer Lee, Ayanna Pressley, Yvette Clarke, all the squad members. They're all doing this too. They refuse to support a resolution honoring Charlie Kirk, but they support the terrorist murderer who killed a cop and then fled to Cuba. This should tell you everything you need to know about the left. This is everything you need to know about the squad. Lee posted a quote from Shakur on X, writing, "We have nothing to lose but our chains." Wait, are you sensing a theme here? Democratic Socialists of America, Teachers Union, Democrats, squad members. They're the same picture. It's all the Spider-Men pointing at each other. She says, "As we face the great fight for freedom in our day, may we find strength and purpose in these enduring words from Assata Shakur." What fight for freedom? Freedom from capitalism. That's what you mean. Young Zach found a communist newspaper that was for sale outside a Huskies game, and he bought it for $5. So the communists who hate capitalism sure do like selling that newspaper for $5. The New York Post, which is a good newspaper, costs what, $1.25, $2 these days? I think the New York Times is $7. Yeah, so the communist newspaper, where there's not a lot there, that costs $5. Oh, those commies sure love capitalism. When we come back, my friends, somebody on the right from the David Horowitz Center has a book out analyzing Kamala Harris's book about her failed campaign, saying she has nobody to blame but herself. Tell you all about Kamala Harris's disaster of a book when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, I spent the weekend reading Kamala Harris's book, so you didn't have to. Mike has seen my copy of it, which literally has a Post-it note on almost every single page of the first third I got through, because it's awful. It's terrible. It's really, really bad. Well, now there's a new book out, 107 Horrible Days, the real story of the Kamala campaign, by David Greenfield, who's the CEO of the Horowitz Freedom Center, and he joins us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
So in your book, what I find fascinating about it is her book wasn't written by her. Her book, she actually lists her ghostwriters, and they are fiction writers. So why'd you decide to write your book when she's already admitting hers is fiction?
Well, because the real story is so much more entertaining than her ridiculous story. Her book is full of whining, self-serving, grandiosity. She complains that nobody appreciated her enough. The American people didn't appreciate her. The Biden administration didn't appreciate her. They didn't understand how much she was doing preventing a war with France, and I'm not making this up. My book is about the ridiculous reality of her campaign, one in which money was lavished so she could hang out with celebrities who otherwise wouldn't give her the time of day. Obama trying to sabotage her campaign and keep her from actually being the nominee. It's the racial lobby within the Congressional Black Caucus threatening and pressuring the Democratic Party to make sure that she was the nominee. And it's the money just going everywhere to finance a candidate who sabotaged her own campaign and yet has no sense of accountability for it whatsoever.
There's something fascinating in her book where she talks about how she was trying to stand up for Israel, but really was giving in to the left-wing activists and claiming that they had a point. This is somebody who always caves to the left-wing activists, whether it's on Israel or anything else. She was the one who was raising money for funds that were bailing rioters out of jail in 2020. And yet she just seems oblivious to the fact that this isn't what America wanted. Instead, she seems determined to blame everybody else under the sun for this.
Yeah, we're seeing this explosion of leftist violence right now, and we should not forget that Kamala had a hand in it. The last time I checked, which was less than a year ago, her fundraising pitch for the bail funds to bail out rioters during the 2020 riots is still up. And those bail funds, by the way, continue to operate and free criminals, including those who actually have blood on their hands, from prison. So this is something that pervades the left, and Kamala has shown zero sense of accountability for her role in the violence, in the chaos. Now, this is a woman who tried to run as a progressive prosecutor, which meant that she would free criminals out of prison. So the violence we're seeing is both the radical and the criminal violence is attributable to her.
We're talking with Daniel Greenfield, who's the CEO of the Horowitz Freedom Center and the author of 107 Horrible Days, the real story of the Kamala campaign. Now, looking at her book, there's something else entertaining. It looks like to me that what she did was take every mean tweet that was written about her and her campaign and respond to it. It seems like this whole thing is through the lens of, well, here's what the Republicans said about me and here's why it isn't true, while in the process proving them true and burning every Democrat she's ever spoken to. Do you think she even ever wants to run again or have a place in Democratic politics?
Oh, she clearly wants to run again. The whole premise of titling a book 107 days or, 2,000-something hours is to suggest that, she didn't really lose the election. She just had 107 days. And if you just gave her more time, she absolutely would have won the election, which, neglects the minor fact that given 107 days, you couldn't even do the most basic thing like come up with a party platform that had her name in it. They couldn't do search and replace in Microsoft Word. They couldn't manage to print up lawn signs or do basic things, but they could spend $1.5 billion. So she absolutely wants to run again. She even had the choice between running for governor of California, because California hasn't suffered enough, and running for president of the United States because the United States has suffered too much already. And she said that she was not doing the governorship, which means she wants to be president. Now, absolutely nobody in the party apparatus wants her to do this again, but they're going to have a lot of trouble stopping her unless they come up with another half-black, half-Indian woman.
In the last few minutes we have with Daniel Greenfield, who's the CEO of the Horowitz Freedom Center, and he just wrote the book, 107 Horrible Days, the real story of the Kamala campaign. I think one of my absolute favorite parts of her book is when she talks about why she didn't pick Pete Buttigieg to be her running mate, where she literally says, it's because he's gay. So I didn't pick him because I had enough things working against me, being a woman, being black, and being married to a Jewish guy. Wow, that intersectionality really kind of bit her in the butt and shows what a real racist bigot she is, don't you think?
It is. It's incredible. It's typical typical of the book and her whole career, where she does something ugly and she projects that ugliness onto other people. She doesn't take accountability for anything she is. And here she's saying, yeah, I'm not going to take this candidate to run with because, it's the American people that are terrible. It's not me who is terrible. And it's her who's terrible. It's always Kamala who is terrible.
Yeah, she really, really is. I mean, I couldn't believe she actually put that into writing, that she didn't pick him for those reasons. I think it actually raised his stock and lowered hers quite a bit, but shows how the left really thinks about these things. They claim to be so progressive, and they're anything but.
And she's gaming out the 2028 election because Buttigieg is a candidate, so she's signaling to the Democratic Party, pick this guy. He can't be elected. I can still be elected because America will possibly vote for a half-black woman, assuming she has a full campaign schedule. They'd never vote for Buttigieg, though.
Daniel Greenfield, CEO of the David Horowitz Freedom Center and author of the new book, Taking Down Kamala Harris's Absolutely Insane Lies, in her new book. Appreciate you joining us today, sir. Appreciate you being with us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for a great conversation.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news headlines for you. Well, it seems like people aren't sticking with Jimmy Kimmel after his return, but people are sticking with faith. According to Post Millennial, some faith leaders have been reporting as much as a 15% increase in church attendance as younger people are getting drawn to Christianity in what some have called the Charlie Kirk effect. So, Matt Zarusin, who is the co-founder of the Newman Ministry, which is a Catholic nonprofit with locations around 250 campuses around the U.S., told the Catholic news agency that in the days following the assassination of Kirk, every faith leader he spoke to told him we've seen bigger crowds at Mass and that there are many people they've never seen before in attendance. Quote, I have not talked to anyone who has not seen an increase in Mass attendance, Zarusin added in his comments. Some schools are reporting increases of 15%. He also talked about how college students are seeking more direction. Zarusin said, so many people are asking, what do I do? What is evil? How does God allow this? They're asking so many basic questions. On social media, there have been a number of posts that have gone viral where people declare they will go to church for the first time, or for the first time in a long time, who have been away from their faith. Zarusin added there is a spiritual revival taking place, and Kirk's death has only emphasized the number of people who are going to church. He pointed to Texas A&M, where 400 college students are going to the Order of Christian Initiation of Adults class at the St. Mary's Catholic Center. Kirk himself, just weeks before his death, said there is a revival in the Christian church. Churches are growing. Young people are flocking to faith in God. And we're seeing something interesting in the Jewish world. I'm just going to take one anecdotal case. Actually, I'll take two. So in my synagogue, the week Charlie Kirk was assassinated, we always do l'chaims. We always do little cheers after synagogue. Yes, a lot of alcohol in the synagogue. And afterwards, a lot of people were saying to Charlie, to Charlie, to Charlie. We did a thing called, there's a thing called a Devar Torah. It means a thing of Torah. It's like a word of wisdom on Scripture. And we were calling them Devar Charlie. We were giving them that week because people were saying some of the quotes he had from the Bible that were the same as the Jewish values, Judeo-Christian values. So I'm seeing the same kind of thing. We're seeing this a lot, as a matter of fact. In fact, later this week, hopefully on Friday, it's penciled in, but hopefully it'll be in pen soon. Dave Rubin is going to be joining us. And Dave Rubin, actually, he's the guy, everybody knows who he is, conservative host who actually used to be very, very liberal and is now very conservative. He used to be a member of the Young Turks, and he's Jewish. And he does this thing where every month he takes off, every year he takes off for the month of August. He goes completely offline, cuts the cord. And I think he was talking to Ben Shapiro, where he said, yeah, I do this every month thing. I should maybe start doing what Charlie does and keep Sabbath. And Ben Shapiro says, you know we do that every week, Dave. You don't have to just take it off once a month. And Dave Rubin took this to heart, and apparently now he's keeping Sabbath every single week. So we're going to have him on the show to talk about that kind of stuff, because I think faith is something we need to discuss a little bit more in the conversation in the wake of Charlie's death. So hopefully we have Dave this Friday. Getting back to our other good news stories, this one here, Mike, you have to help me out with this for a frame of reference. McDonald's is bringing back its famed Monopoly game for the first time in nearly a decade. Is that like the thing they do at the supermarkets, like Safeway or something?
I don't know what they do with the supermarket. So basically what you do is you get your menu liner at the McDonald's is a game board. And then as you buy hamburgers and sodas and stuff, you get Monopoly pieces. So you're essentially playing the Monopoly game.
And you get free stuff at McDonald's?
Correct, yes.
I see. So the way it works at the grocery stores is you get a Monopoly board, and then you get like a pot or a pan or a turkey or things like that. I haven't seen Safeway do that in quite, was it Safeway or Albertsons? I forget which one. One of them was doing it a while ago. I forget which one was doing it, but same concept, basically.
Yeah, similar concept. And obviously it's consumerism based thing, much like the game of Monopoly itself. Very pro-capitalism. Go capitalism. But yeah, it's like, it's just another way to sell hamburgers, but also to play games and presumably trade with your friends or whatever.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it, but I don't even know why it went away, but glad it's back.
Well, because sometimes you just look at the math and you go, do we want people in here getting free stuff because then they're buying more stuff to get the free stuff? Or do we not need them? Do we not need to give them the free stuff because we're okay? And it looks like right now McDonald's wants more people back in the stores. That's why you bring back something like this.
That's a really good point, because then it becomes like the choice of like, well, do I get the regular size soda with 1 game piece, or do I get a large that has 2 game pieces on it? You start
Also,
making those kinds of decisions.
There's another decision too. We could go to Burger King or we could go to McDonald's. Well, McDonald's, I like their fries, but also we get the Monopoly set, which we could get more McDonald's, and Burger King isn't doing that right now. That becomes a factor in that as well. I know there was a steak place we used to go to in Israel where we went there because we knew on our birthday we get free steaks. So we went to that place. Yeah, it was awesome. Don't find stuff like that in the U.S. Starting October 6th, the game will return for a limited time. Instead of a physical board, customers will play through the company's mobile app. Hey, saves costs on paper, by the way. Yeah, because you're always losing those things, right, Mike?
Well, and of course, and it encourages you to download the app. So there you go. That's a triple, double Lindy there of dual purpose.
And then they can text you, and then they can send you updates. This is win-win for McDonald's. Speaking of win-win, my friends, time for you to win fantabulous prizes. Today we're giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union, with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, plus the Little Red Book of Retirement. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots. So future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement, plus a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, my friends, don't forget also to subscribe to our app. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast downloads on whatever your preferred podcast platform is, and make sure you check out the new KVI.com with all new articles from me, including exclusive story you're going to hear tomorrow on the show, but you can get it early tonight over at KVI.com. That's going to do it for us today, my friends. Fear not, we'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.